Hey everybody, it's Mike Meyers. It's the third day of the Ask Mike Anything CompTIA A Plus, Net Plus, and Security Plus live stream. I'm still working on some of the technology here, guys. But for anyone who was there yesterday, you're going to find that it's going to be better today than we did yesterday, technically. So we're going to continue to work on this. It's a bright, sunny day here in Houston, Texas, as you can see. Unfortunately, it's coming in a little bit more than I wanted, but whatever. So anyway, here I am this is my home office. This is where I do all the magic. And so we're kind of got a bit of a wide open format today. We got some guys from yesterday. Hey, Gino, Philip. What up, Skyler? Anyway, so cool. So you guys ready to dive in? Again, pretty much let's keep it technical topics. Religion and politics, probably not the place for this. Otherwise, let's check a look at it. Moses Park, do MacBook Air use inverters like the ones seen in CCFLs? I would almost guarantee they use LED. Oh, Scott Jernigan already has your answer. The one thing, Moses, that you got to remember is that for, in terms of field replacement, if you're not going to buy just LEDs for a MacBook, you're going to buy entire screens. I've actually had to deal with this. iFixit.com has some wonderful resources for that stuff. You're going to replace the entire monitor. There is no way that you'll replace individual components. Sound is good. Yeah, glad to hear that. What route would you recommend for someone looking to be a system administrator? Depending on your age, A+, Net Plus, and looking towards Microsoft certifications. All it is interesting that I did discover today, or yesterday actually, that the traditional MCSE is going away. It's not so much being replaced, it's been pushed to the side by a broad section of other types of certifications. So yeah, that would be the route. That would be the route I'd go. Ian, hi from Scotland. I can do a really bad Scottish accent. Hey, Paul, there you are, buddy. Hey, Kevin, I just wondering, how do I remember Network Plus acronyms? Remember what they do. See, this is the thing that drives me nuts, is that people are like, oh, what does DHCP stand for? You will never be tested on a CompTIA exam what DHCP stands for, but you better know exactly what it does, okay? So it's really important that you concentrate. It's not important. In fact, my guys at Total Seminar tease me all the time because I always screw up on different types of acronyms, but I guarantee you if it's DNS or DHCP or triple DES, whatever it might be, I can talk about it in detail. So my answer is don't worry about it, but make sure you understand what these technologies are and what they do. Hey, Professor Bright, I don't know if I know you, but hello, welcome aboard, man. Glad to have you. You're okay, the Mal Lad. I'm not getting the difference between UEFI and legacy boot in laptop. All right, now we got a good question. Computers, PCs in particular, when they first came out, were basically 16-bit computers. The original 8088, arguably 8086 processor, certainly the 286, were 16-bit processors. So everything in the computer, including the original BIOS and everything, had to speak in this very rudimentary 16-bit language. Now, as Windows came along and developed and pushed DOS to the side, we moved from a 16-bit to a 32-bit world, but BIOS was never updated. You have to understand, your beautiful high-end Intel i7 processor, in the morning when it boots up, it thinks it's a very, very fast 8086, really. And it has to go through a series of boot processes to get it into the multitasking, full-blown 32-bit mode that we know and love, or I should be more accurate there, 64-bit, although. Okay, so for decades, we lived in a world where all of our technology was 32 and even to a smaller extent 64-bit back then, and BIOS was still 16-bit. So UEFI, there's an example of, I don't remember, usually extensible firmware interface. UEFI was just an upgrade to the traditional BIOS, but while they were there, they did a lot more things to make it very, very powerful. Multi-boot functions, support for applications. We don't really use all the power that UEFI has to offer, simply because most of us prefer to have our operating systems do most of the hard work. Okay. Rockman 4140. Hey, Mike, good to see you. The most important question I have for you. Did you change your Steam name? What is my Steam name? Let me fire up Steam. Oh, here, I'll type in my Steam name. I am Senor Pepe. There we go. Hey, here's somebody called Whistlebear. Hello. Black Bash Entertainment. Hey, man. Nice to meet you. Okay, Vimal, how's it going to begin? Okay, the difference between a virtual machine and an emulator. Okay, so a virtual machine is only as good as the hardware underneath it. So, for example, if you have an operating system that's designed to run on an Intel x86 or x64 processor, all that a virtual machine can do is share some of that actual processor. Now, let's say you have an old Commodore 64 program from 78 and you're just feeling nostalgic and you want to play it. A virtual machine can't do that. You have to use an emulator which will fake and pretend to be this other type of processor, this other type of hardware. So one more time, virtual machines take the actual real hardware you have and then pass it out through a virtual machine to the individual client operating systems via the hypervisor. An emulator pretends to be something that is absolutely not what the actual hardware is. Scott North Music. If I studied for the 901, 902, would taking the 1001, 1002 be good? Or should I restudy for the 1001? You need to restudy for the 1001, 1002. Scott, you don't have a choice. The chances of you being able to pass the 1000X with only the knowledge from the old 901s, I wouldn't risk it. But the nice part is, especially if you got a lot of skill set, I mean, I wouldn't go in and start buying videos and books, although my mortgage would appreciate it. But what you probably ought to do is get practice questions. Total Seminar sells practice questions. Lots of other folks sell excellent practice questions. And I would bet that that's all you would need to brush you up. You might run into a technology or two, but honestly, if it's just a few spot things like that, you could probably just, Google the knowledge you'd need for, more advanced scripting tools, stuff like that. See if anybody from my office has a heart attack from me saying that. Man, I should not touch this scroll bar. Moses. So what is the circuit board assembly called under the LCD? You mean the inside a monitor, the little piece of logic technology, the logic board? I don't know. I don't have a name for it. Sorry. You would not be tested on that. I replaced an LCD in a MacBook Air before and never knew what the part was or did. Really? You did? That I will bet. Like, where'd you get the parts? I mean, that's really the big question. Like I said earlier, Moses, if you know of a source where you can buy individual parts for the internals of a MacBook Air monitor, put it up on the screen because I'd like to see it too. Oh, Professor Bright, you're an instructor. Now I really like you. Hey, man, cool. I got to tell you, I love LA. It's like one of my favorite towns. The farther south I go in California, the more I like it. The further north I go, well, at least until I get to Napa, I don't know. I like Southern California quite a bit. It's a great area. Here's somebody I've never heard of before. Somebody called Debbie Halcomb. I don't know who that is. Debbie's a very, very old friend of mine. Hey, Debs, good to see you again, boss. You doing okay? All right. So yeah, live and high def, definitely. If your students are with us, right? Oh, you do. Several students. So so Professor Bright, tell us what the name of your school is, so we can at least give you a shout out, okay? Thomas Herm, I would not argue with your explanation of emulation versus virtualization. Sounds good. So, Artist of Life, I'm a teacher of Microsoft apps. I provide exercise files to the students, but I figured out that a girl copied the files to a thumb drive. I'll continue the question in another comment. Okay, bud. Yeah, Scott Jernigan, who isn't that great? Debbie Halcom's on. Virginia will never be the same. James Phillips, Net Plus. What is the difference between an Anycast versus an IPv4 broadcast? That's an excellent question. So when we talk about IPv6 Anycast, you got to keep in mind, in an IPv4 broadcast, you're sending out usually on a particular IP address, something that everybody listens to. So in the most broadest sense, within the LAN itself, that's 255.255.255.255, right? But broadcast can never go past a router. There are situations, and I'm going to make this, let me keep it simple. An Anycast address, actually, in my opinion, looks almost more like an old school IPv4 multicast address, where there are certain very, very specific addresses. I don't have them off the top of my head. Like, for example, in a local area network, when the router wants to broadcast something down to the individual systems on the domain, so you could technically have other things on there, it will send a very, very specific address that's not broadcast. It's a address that's designed for people who are listening for something like, oh, the router is updating its default gateway, or the router is passing out IPv6 DHCP information, stuff like that. A lot of it starts with like FEC0. There's a great Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a good article on IPv6 Anycast addresses. Please check that out. That's a really good source. Thoughts on Kali Linux? Definitely overrated, but I use it all the time. In fact, I keep an old, this is an old Nexus 6, and I've totally rooted it and everything, and it basically boots up into Kali, and I use it for pen testing, primarily for wireless. It's honestly 80% of the tools on Kali I don't use, I have no interest in, but the tools that I like work well. I could do it with anything, but it's really convenient to have it either on a small laptop, especially when you're doing wireless testing, or even on a smartphone, and it works great. I like it. I even believe Kali Linux is actually mentioned on the Security Plus as a tool set. How can we get some Total Seminar swag? Well, Sal, I got just the answer for you. You guys, just for being nice enough to join me today on my live stream, are going to get, you ready? Now, it's theoretically, I'm told this all shows up at the bottom of right underneath the screen you're looking at right now. But if you type in this special code, you ready? MMLive30. So if you type in this special code, everything on my Total Seminars Hub, I got videos if you're not getting from another source, but more importantly, I got practice questions. I got simulations. I got all kinds of stuff in there. Everything is 50% off just for you guys. And all you have to do is type in MMLive30. If you're looking for other swag, we're kind of swag free right now, you know? I'm so paranoid these days. Like, I actually bought a couple of new cameras because this is an okay camera, but I'm looking for something better. And just the fact that it came from China makes me nervous. I know it's probably overkill, but, you know. Yeah, so we're a little swag free these days. But, hey, the secret to getting swag is keep asking. That's always the best secret. Rio Hondo Community College. Okay, Rio Hondo Community College. Hey! So where in LA is that? I'm actually curious. Cool. Rio Hondo Community College. Excelente. Vimal, man, you're making me work for a living. In cloud service, what's the term means? IIAS, SaaS, PaaS, DaaS. Scott, you're up on DaaS, buddy. I can get the other three. All right. So when we first started developing cloud tools, the idea is that we would give you the ability to spin up individual virtual machines. This is like the beginning of cloud services. This is where AWS started. So you would have the ability to spin up individual virtual machines, virtual server, but whatever you might want to do. So that's what we call IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. So, and by the way, did you guys know you can get a free account on Amazon Web Services? You can also get a free account on Azure if you want to go that route. I like them both. I'm a little bit more comfortable with AWS. But as a teaching tool, you can actually spin up a free account. Now, you got to put them a credit card in, but trust me, if you actually start spending money, they'll give you a lot of "are you sures?" But if you're trying to learn about IaaS under Amazon Web Services, man, I can't recommend that enough. Oh, yeah, I knew it. Thanks. My buddy Scott's helping me. He's giving me crib notes down here. So that means infrastructure as a service. But once you set up that infrastructure, it's still up to you to, maintain and keep this up and running and all that type of stuff, So, but it's actually kind of cool to get on AWS. It's like, I want to spin up a virtual machine. And it's like, well, how many virtual processors do you want? How much virtual RAM do you need? What operating system do you want me to install? Stuff like that. And with AWS, they'll set you up like a real basic but fully functional virtual machine, and you can set it up as a web server or whatever you want it to set it up for. Throw a copy of Linux on there. Ubuntu, I think, is what they're pushing, and it's completely free. And it's kind of cool to work with it remotely and set the thing up to do what you want to do. So that's IaaS. All right. So after IaaS is platform as a service. As a technician, I have to deal with these really, really horrible things called programmers. And programmers don't really care about technology, at least in terms of hardware. They're developing some new web page you go to, robotmonkeybutler.com, and you go there and it does something cool and you get to have robot monkey butlers or whatever it might be. So for people like that, they look at something called platform as a service. So platform as a service, probably the most famous one is called Heroku, Heroku. Scott, can you double check my terrible spelling there? So in Heroku, what you're doing is you write code, usually locally on your machine. You upload the code and you say, make it a website. And it goes poof. So it's infrastructure as a service. Plus, it simplifies stuff because coders don't really care about hardware. And it actually has like a little dialer, like it goes from 1 to 11. And the dialer's like, how strong do you want it to be? Heroku. Thanks again, Scott. Heroku. Heroku.com. Check it out. And it will just take your code, throw it up there. It gives you a temporary URL. It's some big god awful URL, but at least you can actually see your web page and your web app running in the wild and see if it works. And then once you got it the way you want it in Heroku, you can set up your own actual DNS name. Set up an FQDN, go boop, put it over there, and ta-da, it's up there and running. Total Seminars used platform as a service for a while. I honestly don't know if we're still using it though. Where are we going from here? Software as a service. To me, software as a service is everything. I mean, Google.com to me is software as a service because we go to software as a service at Google.com and it's a piece of software that helps you find web pages. Now, I guess more what we'd be talking about is like Office 365, where you can have Word online and things like that, and you have to pay $90 a month or whatever it is. So that's software as a service. Desktop as a service is where literally your system boots up and you have some form of remote desktop and tools like Sirix and stuff like that, where your desktop really isn't even on your computer. And the whole thing's taken care of. Good backups, good all that stuff, recovery, anti-malware is usually all handled for you in desktop as a service. Good question, Vimal. Debbie Halcom, missed you at the CompTIA conference. Maybe another time. I'm not sure if Debbie's talking to me or my buddy Scott Jernigan, but we'll see. Ian Hunter, we have an issue over the pond. There we go. With students taking professional exams. Do the states have the same issue? Please reiterate how important certs are. Yeah, we have the same problem here in the States where people take a lot of training and then often fail to actually take the exams. I just think it's nature of the industry, other than as an instructor, providing good motivation. I know schools that literally put their students on a bus and drive them to testing centers and to, go to these extra miles. But that is a challenge. There was some statistics we had where it was actually a fairly small percentage of people actually take certification exams. I'm not going to say a number, less than 50%. There's okay. Somebody named Lady Penelope Bird. I know who that is. Oh, so you actually like the great Mike Stroney, where I do that with the videos? I was just trying to come up with a way because the CompTIA now has so many break fix scenarios on there that I wanted to come up with an analogy that would work for people without dragging them down into too much detail. And that's where the great Mike Stroney came from, as just a fun way to deal with a lot of A+ specific questions. And that's taken from an old God, who was that guy? Talk show host, Johnny Carson. Yeah, who would do something similar to that. I thought it was funny. I'm glad you guys like it there. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to get back. No, this code does not. It's my understanding that this code does not work for vouchers. I'm pretty sure I said that yesterday, but we've got some folks on here who can clarify that. Was I a phone freaker? I never really did too much phone freaking. Yeah, okay, we're confirmed. That unfortunately, that MM Live 30 does not work for vouchers, folks. That's really CompTIA's prices. Okay, Christopher, Kali Linux or Parrot OS? I've really barely touched Parrot. I'm not against it, and I'm very, very, very familiar with Kali, so I stick to Kali. Really, if you think about it, though, most of the tool sets are identical anyway. So, to me, it's pretty much the same. How do you feel about writing certifications at home? Yeah, I know. CompTIA did announce this. It's very exciting. The plus side is, well, number one, coronavirus has got everybody sitting in their house. But even long term, after that's passed, test anxiety is such a big issue for people taking CompTIA exams that anything we can do to make the test taker feel a little bit more at ease is great. I'm curious how they would handle cheating issues on something like that. I don't know. Again, even though that announcement's been out for a few days, I apologize. I haven't actually read up on it. I don't know what the tool sets are. Do they make you have a camera on your computer so they have to watch you? I don't know. Yeah, never was a phone freaker, though. Oh, wait. I got another question that kind of snuck by me here. Drew Marr. If I'm just wanting education for hobby, not a profession, what courses would allow me to tweak and play around with my home PC? A+. That's the one. Now, if you want to get past your home PC and actually start having some fun with your network and Internet of Things and actually tweaking a router properly, you probably want to look at Net+. Not a phone freaker. Okay. How much do you think the current health situation will affect the rollout of Wi-Fi 6 and 5G? Well, Wi-Fi 6 is already, the ball's rolling on that really hard, and I don't see that affecting the actual rollout. It'll affect the adoption big time. And 5G, it's further behind. I don't know. I don't want to lie to you. It sounds like it. I don't know on 5G. I don't think it's going to affect Wi-Fi 6 much. There's Ian Hunter again. Maybe sell a Mike Meyers cowboy hat? Young man, do you know how much a proper Stetson open road 2.5-inch brim silver belly hat goes for? They're about $300. And I got a big head, so nobody can fit in them. Homer 1075 wants a TS hoodie. We actually have folks from our sales department here. They're reading this stuff. It might end up, I don't know if we pull out hoodies, but probably get a frisbee out of us. Are Firewire questions still on the 1000X exams? I hope not. But I don't remember if they're still on there. Okay, Scott's confirming that. No, so they're out. No more Firewire. Firewire was pretty cool back in the old days, though, wasn't it? Before USB smoked it. Philip, good to see you again, man. My headset 3.5-inch jack has 4 pins on it, and when I plug it in my laptop, I get static on my mic. When I plug the 4-pin adapter as a 3-pin, it goes away. Why? Well, it shouldn't really make any difference either way. The static isn't some kind of adapter issue. The static's probably on a 3.5 inch, any 3.5 inch jack, not even just on computers, literally any of them, is that the little things that connect break down over time. And especially for somebody who's plugging them in and out, they become weak and it's not a tight connection. And that's usually where static comes from. Sorry, it's not anything fancy. Rio Hondo in the city of Whittier, 25 miles away from LA. Do you need to be an Amazon seller to get AWS certified? No, I don't. No. Amazon provides a broad cross section of AWS certifications, and we do some too. No, not at all. Have you taken a look at the new CCNA exam? I have not. Haven't taken one peek at it. So, Kevin, these are kind of things that. So I'm going to type in my email address. So if you ever want to have a bigger detailed talk on stuff like that, Kevin, I'm probably due to be looking at Cisco. We had a couple of questions yesterday and the day before that I wasn't able to answer accurately. And the answer is I'm not as up to speed. The new CompTIA Security Plus is being developed now. So it's kind of got my brain, zeroed in on that. Any more plans for a coffee with Mike? You mean like this? Dude, we're going to be doing this for at least a month. So every day at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time, I'm going to be here. And I'm here to help you guys out. I know it's harder. A lot of people aren't able to get into classes these days. I know a lot of teachers are having challenges trying to come up with information for their students. And I'm here for you. So if this is what you mean by coffee with Mike, if it's something else, then I don't know. I can do almost anything you want. Problem is right now our studios are completely shut down. Houston, Texas is under a stay-at-home law, rule, dictate. I don't know what you want to call it. So nobody at Total Seminars is working. So we have a beautiful studio that's completely turned off. Can verify that the MM Live disc. Okay, great. Thomas Herm, this could sound sassy. But I swear I have no tone behind this. I'm just letting you know. There's a 50% discount already on a Top Gun sale. At least that's what the front page says. Thomas, well said, because all the people who are responsible for the front page of the Total Seminars website are actually logged in right now, and they're literally, as I'm saying this, they're probably already done it, and they're going to scramble and see what you're talking about. Programmers are awesome. Programmers are awesome because they give us good jobs as we have to support all of their systems and infrastructure and all that fine stuff. My always big problem with programmers more than anything else, especially when you start talking about lower level programmers, is that programmers look at the world from programming and then go down. As a screwdriver tech, I tend to look at the component level and move up. And it's often very challenging to, especially if a programmer is having a problem with their system in one way or another, to even talk to them, because they're looking at, why isn't my code working, and what's this, and the application I'm using, and then what operating system. I tend to go from the bottom up and look up. Like often they're frustrating people, but we love them. Will Cisco be overtaken by AWS cloud services? Are you kidding? AWS and Azure are probably Cisco's biggest customers. I was actually at an AWS conference about 2 years ago. And I asked the question, I go, what do you guys do for backups? And they just laughed at me. So basically you have a big data center, okay? And in that AWS data center, there's a number of these around the country. They basically build another data center, literally another building, and they're mirror copies of each other. And they just, so it's fascinating. So no, are you kidding me? Cisco, Juniper, they love these AWS. They love cloud services because those are the people with all the routers and switches and everything. Sorry, guys. I stopped the scrolling and then it then I lose my place. I'm moving real fast here. Sorry. So Dave for Shumps, I think we already asked that question, or did I scroll funny? Brandon Bowman, most of my Bachelor of Science, I'm sure, of IT degree was certification based. That's pretty common. Any funny RGE stories? RGE? Scott, it's an acronym I don't know. I don't know what that is. That is fun. How do you get hands-on A+ experience? You just dive in. Get on Craigslist. People are giving away computers left and right. You tweak around. If somebody has a broken computer, start with your family and then your friends and then your family's people and your friends' friends, and you get a name, and then you start having enough confidence to charge $30 an hour, and then you just keep moving from there. I mean, it's so easy to get experience. Volunteer at charities. There's tons of places to get that kind of experience. And keep in mind, especially for more of an entry-level job, people look at that stuff, and that's very valid experience. That's something you put on a resume. Is ITF Plus worth it if you already have an A+? In my opinion, no, because IT Fundamentals is really designed for people who are trying to discover the world of IT and trying to see where they fit and what's going to work best for them. So usually you go IT Fundamentals, then A+, because by then you've started to zero in on what you want to do. And if computers are like cars, we're trying to separate the drivers from the mechanics. And certainly an A+, Net Plus route is very much a mechanics route. Hey, Gino, half the battle insert studying is not psyching yourself out. Yeah, well, I think I said this yesterday. I'm glad to say it again. The number one reason that people fail any of these IT type exams, and certainly CompTIA exams, is test anxiety. It's the number one reason people fail exams. They freak out. They see a question they don't understand, and they're like, oh my gosh. And, whoever's study materials they had, they're going to start blaming that person. So that's the number one reason. You can't freak out. And you have to learn to be calm. That's why, my practice questions are actually designed to mimic the look and feel of the actual CompTIA exams. It's not exact, but it's kind of close. I'm not saying we have the exact same questions. In fact, if we had all the exact same questions, I'd get arrested. But we do. If I have a question that says 2 + 2 = 4, you might want to be studying 2 + 3 and 2 + 1 while you're at it. You know what I mean? Wink, wink. Okay. Colleges use online testing services with a camera. Yeah, I figured it'd have to be something like that. Or they have a proctor watches a webcam. Okay, that makes sense. Cams are necessary. They're very strict. You have to keep your eyes on your PC. Okay. Moses, you are still obsessed with this MacBook. What do we got to do? Okay. So the A+ says CCFLs use it. Well, I don't think that's what we say in my books. I mean, we certainly talk about CCFLs as a way to light, but I assure you that the other way to light, the more modern way to light, is using LEDs. So it's just the way you're creating backlighting, whether you're using a CCFL or an LED. LEDs last longer. They're not analog, so they're easier to use. But Moses, if you got my email address now, so if you really want to challenge me on that, and please do. If I've said something wrong in a book, I very much want to hear about it. But I don't think that's what we're saying, buddy. Mohammed, sir, what is Internet of Things example? Is a game console? No. To me, if you're talking about Internet of Things, what do I have around here to play with to show you? Here we go. This is an example of Internet of Things. This is an Amcrest. They call it a PTZ camera and point tilt zoom. So this camera in and of itself is a complete it has its own IP address. It has a built-in web server that you access through your web browser to see whatever it's seen, and it has controls and all of that. So this is one example. Another great example would be my garage door opener. So my garage door opener has its own IP address, and that's really, when you start thinking about Internet of Things, the big question you have to say to yourself is, does this device, whether it's a Nest thermostat or a PTZ camera or a roller disco fly fishing device or whatever it is, does it have its own IP address? And that's usually the big way to separate an Internet of Things versus a dumb device. Yeah, I have all those light bulbs. Yeah, every light bulb has its own IP address. A lot of IP addresses used here at Shea Meyers, that's for sure. Scrolling. Yeah, okay, well, Moses, then you're right. It would not be an inverter board with an LED. Tell you what, Moses, I am personally going to take a look at this today and see how we word that, and maybe we could make it a little bit tighter. How's that sound? Because you're right. If it's a CCFL, it would be an inverter. If it was LED, it would not have that. Debbie, come on, is that guy? Yeah, me and Debbie Halcombe have some old hats jokes, and she's trying to tease me. Okay, does the CompTIA testing locations offer a small whiteboard or scratch paper? Yeah, they do. I'm pretty sure that it's a rule set for the testing centers to give you like either a little whiteboard that you can wipe off, or I've also seen pads of paper. I have taken hundreds of tests, and I always seem to remember there's something for me to write on. I agree. Doing CIDR without some kind of scratch pad would be tough. Amir Hussein. Mike, I have a basic question, maybe boring. But could you please explain your definition about protocol? It is containing the whole physical media language in the architecture. I am not an IT man. Protocol is certainly not an IT term. Protocol is a methodology of communication between two things in a established and almost standardized way. I mean, we have protocols in diplomacy. We have protocols at, when the president has a dinner, who sits where. These are established rule sets. Within the world of IT, when we're talking about a protocol, is that, especially in networking, is we have lots of things that are talking to each other. We have one application in Karachi talking to an application in Denver. We have a physical computer that has that application, which is talking to a computer. And at all of these different levels, we use a term called the OSI 7-layer model. It helps us define that in order for these things to communicate, we have to have very specific ways for them to speak. Now, these protocols vary dramatically depending on what we're talking about. So you'd have to ask me a question like, what is the protocol for a HTTP handshake between a web server and a web client, for example? That would be, there's a protocol for that. So protocol is a very broad term, and in my opinion, kind of heavily used, incorrectly heavily used. So Timothy Bennett tells us that CompTIA will be using the client proctor test delivery system. Timothy, I don't have a clue what that is, buddy, but we're going to look it up. Brandon, yeah, we use Teams. We use Teams a lot. Can you hear it go blink in the background? Is that where you're getting that? Vimal, man, dude, you are just answering all the good questions. About core and thread in processor. Well, first of all, core. Okay, I see what you're trying to ask. Okay. So I'm a little bit crabby about this question only because I thought I'd describe it so well both in the videos and the book, but I'll give it a quick shot. The whole idea behind getting programming done, like when you double click on the Microsoft Word icon on your system, you're actually taking chunks of code and you're putting it into your RAM, okay? And then what has to happen is that code starts to get pulled into the CPU. And in my books, I use the analogy of the man in box and these guys standing in line on an assembly line. So as CPU power increased, we were able to, in one CPU, create multiple what we call pipelines. And back in the old days, one pipeline could handle one thread. So when you take a program and copy it to RAM, you now have a process. So the process is what sits in RAM, not programs. It's a process. So that process can also call to other pieces of Microsoft Word. It can open files for you. It can do all kinds of stuff. But that process sits in RAM. That process is then broken down into pipeline-sized chunks that we call threads. And each pipeline can handle traditionally one thread at a time. In fact, that's what hyperthreading is all about. Hyperthreading is really kind of an old idea, but it's pretty popular. And with hyperthreading, what we're saying is we have certain CPUs is that because there's all these different steps in the pipeline, they can handle more than one thread at a time in one pipeline. And by putting it in just one pipeline, they can almost act like two computers in kind of a way because there's multiple pipelines going on. A core is enough smarts within a single physical CPU to handle incoming threads, process those threads, and output it. Cores may or may not have their own caches. Cores will have to often work with other cores because a big program, there are certain programs that are designed to work with lots of cores, and they're all working on different parts of this one big program, and they work together. So I guess I could see where you would put, God, I think you asked a question. I've gone way past it. Yeah, so you can have, in pretty much all processors today, have multiple cores, and they can all process. Each core has X number of pipelines, usually 4, 8. AMD, I think, has more than that. And then each pipeline handles individual threads. If the CPU is capable of hyperthreading, it manifests as doubling the number of cores. Kevin, I'm currently using your Network Plus Passport book. How do you manage to write so many books? Let's just say if I write further than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of oppressed employees. Now, the reality is that, first of all, Scott Jernigan, who's on here, is not only a superb editor, but he actually does authorship on a lot of books. I basically will write a core chunk of information, what we call a manuscript, like for A+, and then it's up to the genius of Scott Jernigan and other people like that who take that same piece and turn it into the self-study books or the trade books or the passports, and they do an amazing job, just an absolutely amazing job. So the answer is I don't. I got a lot of people who help me and do great work. Oh, now wait a minute. If you guys were looking for swag, look what we got here. So Kathy Y at TotalSim.com is offering swag. I don't know what this swag is, but there you go. Yeah, Brandon, text anxiety is a big issue. There's something on USB coming up. Scott's sending me all this USB information. Glad to be there for you, Brandon. Sorry, guys, I'm lost again. This is something I'm going to have to get better at. I'm sorry about this. I stopped the scrolling, and then the moment I touch the scroll bar, it's like, brrr. And we're back. What's the newest and greatest USB right now? So USB 4 is pretty much out there, 40 gigabits per second. I don't have these off the top of my head. I'm double checking too. It's compatible with Thunderbolt 3 and backward compatible with USB 3.2 and USB 2.0. And I'll bet you a nickel that when the products start coming out, they'll all be using USB-C. And John Derry was helping out a little bit there. Thank you for the input there, John. No game, no lie. Hi, Mike. Tell me, I don't. I was asked that same question yesterday. I do not have CISSP. I'll never have CISSP. My job is to work in the more, I'm a light blue collar guy. I'm always going to be doing, the more basic I don't like the word basic, the more introductory type certs. So yeah, no CISSP, never. Kevin Evans is in my Security Plus class. Good man. Good class. Thomas Herm, on the first half of the A Plus cert course, you mentioned looking for, dude, no, I am so sorry that I did that on that video. I asked for 1.8 inch hard disk drives. I've got thousands of them. I'm going to tile my bathroom with them. I have so many. I should probably change that and just put a little thing in there. Got plenty, thanks. I'm set though. Thank you. Yeah, I got a ton. You sent one? Did you? So it went to me, and then we put them. We have Total Seminar is kind of a cool place to come visit because we keep a lot of historical hardware. Just because the moment I throw away my last 5.25 inch drive, I'm going to need it for something. And yeah, so it gets stored in very specific places, and that way, next time we need it, we'll have it. And Thomas, I bet you, Nicholas, it's going to be your drive, assuming it still shows up on the exams that we're going to be putting in front of a camera. Thank you very much. Why do some networks have higher latency when the upload download speeds is the same as another network with lower latency? Wow, Philip, that's a huge question. There's thousands of reasons for that. I mean, you know, you'd have to make a very, very specific situation for me to be able to answer that for you. There's lots of reasons. Information technology or computer science degree. Kevin, it really depends on the school, but to me, those are often the exact same thing. Most of the time, though, when you talk about a computer science degree, you're really talking about a programmer degree. And programmer degrees are very, very popular these days. And this is where most of our programmers come from, is they get a bachelor's degree in some CS program somewhere, and that's where they come from. What entry-level jobs would you recommend for rookies? The one you can get. The biggest thing that frustrates me about folks is that they're like, well, I'm going to go take all these certifications and then I'm going to look for a job. Nah, just start looking for a job immediately. Go out and find a job. If nothing else, what you're going to discover is who's hiring in your area and what they're looking for. So you can't be a coward, especially starting out. You grab everything. I don't care. I don't care what it says in terms of requirements, because most of the time on requirements, they put more than they want anyway. And if you can even begin to approach stuff like that, you know, must have 3 years of experience. Most of that's bull. And they might use an excuse to not hire you, but they wouldn't use it. They would not have a problem hiring you if you showed you had other skill sets. Again, non-paid experience is still experience. A great tech interview, good presence. I'm sorry, but as nerds, we fail so many interviews just because we're terrible at it. Eye contact seems to be a lost art, and it's getting worse. Hang on 1 second. I get yelled at for scratching my nose on the camera. So the right question is go for anything you can. Get a sales job at Best Buy. I mean, you know, don't be afraid to take something entry level just to, you know, keep the rent being paid while you're trying to figure the rest of this out. How much time do you need to study as a beginner? Beginner of what, Madhvi? So, Madhavi. Am I saying that right? I'm so sorry. I'm messing up your name. So I'm assuming like you're talking about A+. Well, like in the A+ book, usually I don't know anybody who couldn't pass the A+ in about 120 hours of studying. Now, do you do that 8 hours a day? You know, are you going to night school? Are you a really good learner and maybe don't need that much time? Are you maybe hard and you're not a really, you know, feel you pick up on stuff fast, maybe you need a little more time? But, you know, 80 to 120 hours is not a bad place to start. When I was at tech college, someone found a lot of old PCs for like $50. You dive in, break, and fix. Yeah, you still see that stuff. I call it Craigslist, but yeah, similar thing. Do I do courses for CCNA? I do not do CCNA courses, but I've been thinking about it. Will data centers have a comeback, or is this virus the final? This is what's going to make them go more than ever, right? I mean, somebody at work was telling me that streaming bandwidth has increased 750% in the last couple of weeks. So, no, I think data centers are going to be around for a long, long time. Much love from Kurdistan. Thanks, Ahmad. Do I have an OLED TV? I got a really cool OLED foldable thing, but I do not have an OLED. I've got a fairly late gen Samsung Smart TV LED 53 inch, and I'm happy with it. I'm thinking about that. Do I have any OLED monitors or something? But nope, not right now. But that, can you see the poster view? What poster? Ah, crap. It's from 2005. I didn't have any hair back then either, but at least I covered it in a hat. And you guys think I was wearing that hat to be cool. Ever play with liquid cooling? Pizza button submerged oil? Oh, sure. Zillions of times. I think liquid cooling has its moments. For me, because I'm not a big overclocker, the only real motivation for me for liquid cooling is quietness. And now, I've got some of these cases where I'm running, 120 millimeter fans, and it's really quiet. And so I haven't played with liquid cooling much lately. It's awfully convenient compared to the old days. I mean, you can buy kits now that pretty much snap everything in, including your graphics card, and it just works. But like the submerged mineral oil stuff, the always a problem I have with people who submerge systems in mineral oil is it works really, really good until the mineral oil heats up. People think because I could just get a fish tank and drop an entire motherboard in mineral oil, a lot of expensive mineral oil, that it works. And it does work. It's actually cool to watch. But mineral oil also heats up, and you go right back to the same situation where now you just have a huge tank of hot mineral oil, and I guarantee you, give me a bunch of high schoolers and a tank of hot mineral oil, somebody's going to get hurt. IoT devices should be on their own VLAN. Yeah, probably. I never did it here at the house. Probably should have. Andrew C., back again. Do you have an opinion on what certs to get if you feel that telehealth, VPN, and working for home? James Phillips, that is a very interesting question. I think we're too early in the process for me to think of. I haven't thought about it. Is the right answer. I could definitely see where remote connectivity issues. I have spent a ridiculous amount of my personal time helping people configure Skype and Zoom and stuff like that. Interesting question. I don't have an answer. Do I like a certain VPN company? What have I been using lately? Let me look. So yeah, usually what we do, now I'm talking, if you're talking about reverse VPNs where you're trying to grab stuff in the UK and you're in the US, I'm not going to throw that out. Total Seminars, we use OpenVPN almost exclusively. It's a great tool, a little bit of a challenge to configure, but it's free, it's robust, and it's easily designed to disperse clients to individual users and stuff like that. So OpenVPN is probably the where I'm going to go. But I have a feeling, Paul, that's not the question you were asking me. So with the CompTIA A+ exam, this is Joseph Durant. So with the CompTIA A+ exam, are both exams done in a single day, or can I schedule to do both parts at different times? You can do both. You can do it at different times. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Or, but I always tell people, you're all studied up. Do one right after the other. The only downside to doing both exams at once is that if you fail the first exam, sometimes it's hard to do the second exam. But you got to remember, folks, this isn't an SAT. If you fail an exam, you just retake it. Yeah, I know there's the inconvenience of rescheduling and paying for it, but you just retake it. I fail 1/3 of all the certification exams I've ever taken. All of them. I fail 1/3 of them. So I like to get it done. To me, so you sit there, you do the 1001, let's say A+ is what we're talking about here. So you do the 1001 and you pass. Going through that process of scheduling again for the other exam, getting the other half done, I've seen a lot of people fail that. And especially shows up like when they update an exam, like go from 901 to 901, 902 to 1001, 1002. I start getting this flurry of emails. Mike, I've passed the 901. Do I have to retake both of the new exams? Yes, you do. So keep that in mind. Do I need an OLED, Paul? Okay. I've actually seen some we have a Costco here in Houston. They have those beautiful displays of the OLEDs, and they are absolutely gorgeous. Is there really a fiber line under the sea connected from Africa, my home, to America? There's undersea fiber maps. In fact, one of the guys in my office has one on his wall. I would bet there is. Oh, here. Good old Scott Jernigan, my buddy. You're the best, Scott. There you go. There's your answer right there. Check them out. I look like Louis C.K. on the poster. Okay, I'm not sure. When I had hair, everybody said I looked like Ralph Mouth from Happy Days, but, Do I have good connections at NASA? I have very good connections at NASA. I've actually had tours of like the original Apollo mission control thing, and I got to sit on the space shuttle toilet. It was cool. Yeah. So in NASA, if you want to go to the bathroom in space, you have to have certification. Seriously. So the astronauts usually leave that as like the last thing they do, and they're all standing in line to get certified to show that they know how to go to the bathroom in space. Scatological humor, always fun. Yeah, Paul, I fail certs all the time. Oh goodness, we're almost out of time. Please advise ever schedule the exam, then study pressure. Please advise. Oh, yeah. Well, one of the things I always tell people is you should schedule for your exams usually when you begin to study, because if you don't, you're just going to do that round to it thing and you don't end up taking the exams. So to me, and I've seen a lot of, especially high schools here in the United States, where the instructors pretty much already have pre-established when the exams are going to be taken. And it does put a little heat and pressure on everybody. And it works out real well. Mike, hey, Mike. Okay. With our current Corona situation, is it still a good idea to schedule the exam date when it might be canceled? No. In fact, I'm pretty sure Pearson VUE's canceled that completely. You'd have to double check with Pearson VUE. And again, in about less than 30 days from now, CompTIA is going to have some kind of take the test at home set up. So we're all very excited as we get more details on this and see how that goes. You're very funny, Paul Murphy. I'm going to leave it right there. Hey, but I will tell you this, Paul. There's actually a camera that points up so you can properly dock. Really, I'm not kidding. They've got a camera that points up. Any plans, additional CompTIA or Cisco practice tests? Timothy, we're always scheduling stuff. I got to tell you, the virus has really messed up total seminars too in terms of what we're looking at for future products. And these types of things are on the list, but being pushed back very, very quickly right now. We'll see. We're looking forward to doing this. Scott Jernigan says coming soon. Okay. Yeah, that's true. They have extended all the vouchers for all the CompTIA vouchers have had a 90-day extension, I think. Pretty much like that. And here's Lady Penelope Bird happening. VUE-owned testing centers are closed. Third-party authorized may be open at their own discretion. That's the last info we have. And Thomas Hearn, listen, I'm sorry, we're running out of time for today. I did some troubleshooting today, deleted some serious suspect, screwed up. Good game to me. Thomas, if that's in the form of a question, we will be back tomorrow, guys. And I'm really working on developing, getting a little bit more sophistication here than a webcam. So we should have some cool tools in terms of being able to develop some stuff. If you need, especially if you're an instructor, if you need me to cover a particular topic, usually I like to answer more detailed questions, but for instructors, and I guess anybody, we'll keep it fair. I will be glad to develop and lecture on topics in more detail. But just keep in mind, if you watch my videos, I have these all memorized in my brain because I've been teaching this for so long. And if you ask me to talk about something and you've already watched the video, there's going to be a lot of redundancy because that's the only way I know how to teach it. Look, guys, it's after 3 o'clock for me, so I'm going to have to go. Thank you so much. Please come back tomorrow. We're going to be doing this every day. We're going to be covering any topics you guys want to do. Also, remember that we have the special deal, MM Live 30. So just go to www.totalsim.com. It should be right below this screen, and 50% off of anything that you could possibly want from the Total Seminars products. So until tomorrow at 2 p.m., and remember, it's Monday through Friday. I'm going to take Saturdays and Sundays off, kids. So until 2 p.m. tomorrow, I will see you. Hasta.